Hello, guys. Welcome back to Faith Movies. Today's movie recap will be a drama and adventure movie from 1997 called Solomon. Warning, there are spoilers ahead. The movie begins with men reciting some words from the biblical chapter, Songs of Solomon. Adonijah, David's son, gets hurt while competing with his brother Solomon in a chariot race. The two are fierce rivals as they're both prospective heirs to the throne. Adonijah announces himself as the winner, but Solomon disagrees as he hasn't reached the finish line yet. Solomon mocks his brother but takes his injured brother and their entourage back to Jerusalem on his chariot. On their way there, they meet a man who asks if they need help. The man then introduces them to his daughter, a very attractive woman named Abishag, who is knowledgeable in the use of herbs. She is asked to help Adonijah and successfully does so while her father moves around happily. Adonijah ends up falling in love with Abishag as he praises her healing powers. He tells Abishag's father he would like to marry her, but he refuses. They return home and Solomon goes to his father, David, telling him that Adonijah challenged him to a race but was thrown from his chariot and was hurt but was healed by a lady. David asks that the lady be brought to him so she can help with his old body. Solomon promises to do so. Adonijah rides majestically into town as Joab praises him. They all go to see Abishag to ask that she and her father present themselves at King David's court. The girl and her family immediately go with the men, meeting Bathsheba, one of King David's wives and Solomon's mother. She arranges for Abishag to work for David, hoping that her beauty and healing powers will soothe David's suffering. Joab fully supports Adonijah's claim to the throne, though David hadn't made it clear who would succeed him. He sees Solomon as a weakling under whose leadership the kingdom would soon fall apart. Abishag is taken to meet David, who admires her beauty. She is told to play the harp, which she does. Joab and Adonijah begin conspiring against Solomon with the priest. Prophet Nathan finds out about this conspiracy and tells Solomon and Bathsheba. Adonijah and his men get the priest to anoint him at the spring of En-Rogel. He also gathers people and entices them with delicious delicacies to cheer them on. Bathsheba urges the king to make a decision and tells him Adonijah has anointed himself to be king. David then ordains Solomon as king and tells him to get the other loyal priest, Zadok, and palace guard, and Solomon is to ride on David's donkey. The news of Solomon's coronation immediately reaches En-Rogel. The people immediately acknowledge this as the will of King David, and they move to Jerusalem to greet the new king. Adonijah is left behind with a few loyal supporters. He immediately realizes he is lost, but there's nothing he can do. Joab is tied up and brought before David. Joab claims he hasn't betrayed the king. David then asks him to bow to King Solomon, but Joab doesn't. David then declares death as the penalty for Joab, but under the conditions that when David dies, his life is in the hands of the new king. He then banishes him from Jerusalem, sparing his life. He then tells Solomon to judge Adonijah himself. Solomon realizes the penalty for Adonijah's crime is death. Solomon goes to En-Rogel to find Adonijah, who humbly submits his life. Adonijah is forgiven on one condition, that he always remains loyal to his brother Solomon. David addresses his people and says Solomon will build a sanctuary for God as he hands over the building plans to his son. He also provides the jewels for the temple. He then sits Solomon on his throne and places his crown on him as the others chant Solomon's name. The great King David dies, and his son Solomon has succeeded him as the rightful ruler of Israel. Joab doesn't stop meeting with Adonijah and trying to torment him. Adonijah now has a request to make of Bathsheba. He wants to marry Abishag, though Adonijah is told by Joab that Abishag is out of his reach. Solomon prays to God, asking for strength as he recognizes he's weak. He is told about Adonijah's wish as his mother tells him about it and recognizes it as a renewed ploy on behalf of his brother to reclaim the throne. Solomon knows that he has to act quickly and decisively if he is to secure his own power. He decides Joab and Adonijah must die and has his brother Adonijah and his closest associate Joab executed, the punishment for being a traitor. After this seemingly difficult decision, Solomon goes to present sacrifices to the Lord. In a dream, the Lord appears to him and grants him the fulfillment of a wish, whatever he wanted. Solomon asks for wisdom only so he could become a good ruler and judge. God grants him his wish. Soon, war with Egypt begins to brew. To protect his kingdom against its powerful neighbors, Solomon introduces a lot of new reforms and also marries the daughter of the pharaoh. It's a huge wedding with everyone happy for the king. The Egyptian princess brings her gods along, and Nathan isn't too supportive of it. Solomon tries to convince him that he has to do it as it's a political marriage. Nathan then worries about Solomon getting married to several other wives. Solomon is also told that any son from his wife cannot inherit the throne. The Egyptian princess does not remain Solomon's only wife, as Nathan predicted. As time goes by, the king marries numerous noblewomen from many different countries for political and economic reasons. In this way, he preserves peace for his people and creates wealth and prosperity. He allows the women to continue practicing their domestic customs and religious rituals in Jerusalem as well. This regularly brings him into conflict with Nathan and the other priests, who see the foreign religions as endangering Israel's sole covenant with the Lord. The wisdom granted to Solomon by God shows itself when the king sits in judgment. 2 harlots each claim to be the mother of the same baby. Solomon then says that the child should be cut in 2 so that each woman receives half. Due to their reactions, Solomon can determine who the real mother of the child is. He knows the mother wouldn't let her child be harmed. Solomon, after realizing the true mother, hands the child back to her as the crowd cheers for him. Solomon then takes on the task of building the temple for the Ark of the Covenant. It has to be more magnificent than any other temple in the world. He places Jeroboam in charge as chief overseer. Solomon has a lot of children, and Bathsheba teaches them the art of music and dancing. While she's correcting them, she slumps and dies. 7 years later, the temple is completed. All the construction materials have been bought from places far away, and the people of Israel had contributed financially through high taxes. The Ark of the Covenant is then taken to the temple triumphantly. People stream into Jerusalem from other countries to celebrate this great feat. Abishag, now married, comes too and brings her family. Solomon has decided to mingle among the people in disguise, and he and Abishag are overjoyed when they accidentally meet again after so many years. Solomon teaches his people at the temple. The temple makes Jerusalem and its king famous throughout the world, so much so that even the dark-skinned Queen of Sheba sets off to visit the wise and cultivated Solomon and admire his city. Solomon falls in love with her, and they end up having a child, Menelik. However, the Queen of Sheba decides to leave as she doesn't want her son to be deprived of the dignity he would encounter at home. She decides to leave, but Solomon stays behind. Years pass, and Solomon has now achieved everything he wanted, but he begins to question his existence. He gets more invested in material things as they seem to show and represent reality for him. Still with his foreign wives, Solomon sacrifices to foreign gods, and this incurs the wrath of the priests and Nathan. Jeroboam tries to appeal to the king, but Solomon refuses to listen. Solomon also disguises himself as a normal individual and meets with his people. On one of his trips, a simple farmer reminds him of the first of the 10 Commandments revealed by the Lord to Moses: "You shall have no other gods before me." God also speaks to Solomon and announces the punishment for his sins, telling him the kingdom will collapse after Solomon's death. Solomon has now become old and weary and has stopped connecting with the people of Israel, who are now suffering heavily from increased taxation and forced labor. Solomon and Jeroboam are no longer close, as Solomon now despises him because a priest has predicted the division of the kingdom to him. Even after being told this, Solomon does nothing about it, as he's too weak to do anything, so he just leaves things the way they are. Solomon finally reaches the end of his life, and Israel faces great consequences. Solomon's successor, Rehoboam, rules with arrogance, and this leads to the division of the kingdom. Judah belongs to him, and the others go with Jeroboam. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give a thumbs up and subscribe. Your support is appreciated. Remember, Jesus loves you. Have a blessed day, and see you next time.